Hi everyone and welcome to the official Hearts of Iron 4 Doctrines guide. In this video, we will cover everything you need to know about one of the most important systems in the game, Doctrines. My name is a Machiavellian strategist and I make guides for Hearts of Iron 4. I'm very excited to bring you this tutorial in collaboration with Time and Hatless Spider.
Hello, I am Hatless Spider and I approve this message.
Before we begin, keep in mind that this is an advanced guide. If you're new to the game, I recommend checking out the new beginner's guide first. You can find it in the description. That said, let's get started. So, why are doctrines so important? Simply put, they have a huge impact on how you shape your forces in the game. And that's even more true now with the new system introduced alongside No Compromise, No Surrender. And just to be clear, this is the new system for everyone. You don't need to own the DLC to use it. You can find all doctrines, land, naval, air and special forces in the Officer Core tab. In this video, we will cover them all, but with a particular focus on land doctrines since they usually have the greatest impact on your campaigns. As you can see, the first thing to do when you interact with this new system is to select a Grand Doctrine. This is an important choice as it will directly affect how you use your divisions and define your overall playstyle. That's why in this guide we'll not only cover the doctrines themselves, but also look at how they fit some of the main countries in the game. For example, selecting mobile warfare favors an aggressive playstyle with faster planning and highly mobile divisions. This makes it easier to abuse gaps in the front and overwhelm the enemy before they can react. This is the starting doctrine for Germany, and for good reason, as it perfectly reflects how historical Germany fought at the time. However, if your offensives start to stall and the war turns into a battle of attrition, well, that's where mobile warfare may start to struggle, and doctrines such as superior firepower or Grand Battleplan gain the upper hand. Now, before we go deeper, one of the biggest changes with this new system is the addition of sub-doctrines. They are split into 4 groups with infantry, support, armor and operations. Each category contains a large variety of sub-doctrines that specialize in different unit types. We won't cover every single one in this guide as that would take way too long. But it is important to know that sub-doctrines are not tied to your chosen Grand Doctrine. You always have access to all of them except for the ones restricted by ideology or special projects. In other words, this new system offers unprecedented flexibility on how you shape your forces. But that's not all. When selecting your Grand Doctrine, the most important things to focus on are the initial buffs and the milestones bonuses, which you can conveniently see through this tooltip here. This way you can see what you instantly get and what you get upon completing all milestones. While this freedom makes it easier to choose your Grand Doctrine, it also makes it more punishing to change it later, as switching means losing all of your sub-doctrines, all mastery and all milestones. So, to help you make an informed choice, let's take a look at each Grand Doctrine, the playstyle it supports, and some of the countries that benefit the most from it. That said, it's worth noting that Paradox has always done a fantastic job of keeping multiple approaches viable. While mobile warfare fits Germany perfectly, it is absolutely possible to succeed with a superior firepower Germany or even with an infantry-oriented mass assault build. The meta will definitely keep shifting, but if your strategy makes sense, the game will reward you for it, so never stop experimenting. Let's start with mobile warfare. As we've mentioned, mobile warfare is designed for quick, aggressive playstyles. Its initial buffs and milestone focus on offering the player faster divisions, higher planning speed, and better organizational retention while on the move. Naturally, this works best with armored formations, motorized or mechanized infantry supporting tanks. Ideal divisions for this playstyle, like this one, are incredibly powerful but also quite expensive. So Germany is the perfect fit for mobile warfare, both for strategic and practical reasons. Speed is critical to securing Europe before the Allies can organize. Germany's industry can sustain these costly divisions, and with limited manpower and coring potential, armor is the best way to reduce losses and preserve strength. When it comes to sub-doctrines, the variety on offer is truly immense, allowing you to fully tailor them to your playstyle. Mobile warfare emphasizes speed and aggression, But whether you pursue it with light tanks, medium tanks, motorized artillery, self-propelled guns, or even cavalry, depends entirely on your strategy and resources. The great thing is that whatever approach you choose, you will likely find a sub-doctrine that perfectly matches your goals. If you want my personal opinion, in the current state of the game, I really like the Grand Assault sub-doctrine in the operations section. It offers some absolutely fantastic max planning, which perfectly complements the extra planning speed we get from our Grand Doctrine. Mobile infantry would be the logical infantry sub-doctrine, to boost our motorized and mechanized divisions and better support our tanks. Speaking of which, for the armor sub-doctrine, I really like both armored spearhead and streamlined deployment. The first offers fantastic bonuses to breakthrough and organization on our tanks, and unlocks one of the best tactics in the game, breakthrough, right away. The second offers some fantastic soft attack right away, followed by several relevant buffs later on. When it comes to the support sub-doctrine, field engineering would probably be my default choice, since it buffs the always great engineer company. Next, let's move on to superior firepower. This is the starting doctrine for the United States, but it can really work with almost any nation, as it offers strong buffs to line and support artillery. While mobile warfare shines with powerful but expensive divisions, superior firepower can work well even for smaller nations with weaker industries. Although of course that's not the case of the United States. Support artillery is one of the best support companies in the game, offering valuable soft attack for no extra combat with. Since artillery is also fairly cheap and available from day one, relying on support and line artillery can be a great choice in many scenarios. Moreover, through milestones, superior firepower provides some generic yet very useful bonuses, such as reduced supply consumption, extra organization for support companies, and additional army recovery rate. Sub-doctrines make things even more interesting, as it is now possible to go for a fully artillery-oriented build, which fits superior firepower perfectly. So, for the infantry sub-doctrine, I would go for assault infantry, to stack up those incredible support artillery buffs. And then, one of the biggest and most interesting changes in this rework. For the support sub-doctrine, we now have access to fire concentration, which reduces the line artillery combat with right away. Previously, one of the main criticisms of line artillery was its excessive combat width. Yes, the soft attack is great, but it adds 3 combat width instead of the 2 of infantry or even tank battalions. This meant that when comparing stats per width, line artillery often fell into a suboptimal category. Well, with this new sub-doctrine, that's no longer the case, as now its width is comparable to that of most other battalions. And that's just the first perk. Additional ones further enhance its key stats, making it a perfect fit for superior firepower. In other words, it's time for the new line artillery meta, everyone. Now, for the operation sub-doctrine, there are several great options. But since we're going for an artillery-oriented build, Rapid Domination offers some fantastic bonuses not only to line and support artillery, but to all support companies. Finally, for the armor sub-doctrine, which is probably the least relevant for this setup, I would pick armored spearhead, mainly to unlock the breakthrough tactic right away. That's assuming you are not using tanks and not accumulating enough mastery to unlock further perks. Next, let's talk about the favorite doctrine for many of us, Grand Battleplan. This is also the starting doctrine for several majors, including Italy, France, the UK, and Japan. Grand Battleplan is popular because it offers great potential through extra max planning. Now, we've already covered planning in the beginners and advanced guides, so here is the short version. Planning enhances your division stats based on the current and max planning levels. So higher max planning means higher potential stats. Mobile warfare might offer faster planning, but it is Grand Battleplan that gives you those juicy extra stats. So why don't we always just pick Grand Battleplan then? Well, because max planning isn't guaranteed. First of all, it takes time to achieve it, and there are situations in which you cannot easily get it. Naval invasions, for example, make it hard to fully benefit from planning. Spy networks can significantly reduce max planning, and that's something the AI tends to do quite frequently. It can be countered, but that's still an additional step. Moreover, sometimes it's just better to keep pushing forward rather than stop to regain planning. which would also give the enemy time to reorganize. These are all reasons why sometimes faster planning from mobile warfare or extra raw stats from superior firepower can be more practical than the higher potential stats from Grand Battleplan. That said, it's important to highlight that Grand Battleplan isn't just about max planning. Through milestones, it also offers some fantastic buffs to coordination and command power, both as max command power and daily gain. This is especially valuable since more command power means more commander abilities, like Staff Office Plan, which speeds up planning. In other words, Grand Battleplan can offer both fast planning and high max planning. All in all, Grand Battleplan is one of the best and most flexible doctrines in the game. Its milestones and buffs are useful on the offense, on the defense, and on any division type. It works well on almost any nation, which is why I would personally recommend it as a strong default choice. And when it comes to sub-doctrines, you can literally do anything you want with Grand Battleplan. But I would still start with the Grand Assault Operation sub-doctrine. The total max planning you can reach in this way is incredibly powerful, I'm not going to lie. Honorable mention to infiltration tactics though, as in addition to the extra planning, you also get some fantastic land-night attack and the always great reduced supply consumption. For the infantry sub-doctrine, assault infantry is still a very solid choice as it buffs the always useful support artillery. But to mention something different here, let's focus on the fact that through milestones, Grand Battleplan also offers some extra max entrenchment, and these can pair really well with defensive postures. One fully unlocked, the amount of extra entrenchment you can get is quite crazy. For the support sub-doctrine, I would pick once again field engineering for generic gameplay and other ones for dedicated units. As for armor, the same exact thing we said about superior firepower still applies, with armor spearhead being a strong default choice. Finally, let's cover mass assault. This is the starting doctrine for the Soviet Union, which should already give us a clear idea of its design. Looking at its buffs and milestones, the focus is clear: reducing out of supplies penalties and getting more divisions, especially infantry, on the battlefield faster. The reduced non-combat out of supply penalties help divisions stationed in remote areas, like Siberia, the border with China, the border with Finland. Meanwhile, the extra supply grace you get with the doctrine itself can be a lifesaver, allowing your troops to push just a little further to reach a decisive supply hub or victory point. Mass assault also lowers the minimum training level on your divisions, allowing you to deploy manpower more quickly. This naturally fits the Soviet Union, especially with its Operation Milestone, which counters the war support penalty from combat casualties. On one hand, you can think of mass assault as emphasizing large number of infantry divisions, poorly supplied, poorly trained, and thrown at the enemy. This might not sound exciting, but it works, and it certainly worked historically. On the other hand, the doctrine can also be tailored to smaller, specialized infantry formations, sometimes paired with special forces that excel in low supply terrains where larger armored templates would struggle. In this sense, mass assault can also work well for nations like China, where rough terrain and supply problems are common, but manpower is abundant. As for sub-doctrines, the large unit tactics in the infantry section perfectly fits mass assault, further reducing supply use and infantry battalions combat width, allowing you to fit even more divisions into each battle. Again, in the operations section we have several great options, but since we already talked about Grand Assault, let's mention something different here. Desperate Defense offers an incredible buff to recruitable population right away, potentially making this Grand Doctrine viable even for countries with limited manpower. The final soft attack buff to the entire army is also amazing. For support, once again field engineering would be the default choice. And for armor, in addition to what we already said, armored infantry support could be an interesting choice if you plan to pair your large infantry divisions with a few medium or even heavy tank battalions for extra firepower and protection. Now, in the Officer Corps tab, you also still have access to Special Forces. This tab should look a lot more familiar, since the new Grand and Sub-Doctrine system does not apply here. However, we did get a brand new Special Forces type, Rangers. Mind that Rangers are exclusively available to those who purchased the No Compromise, No Surrender DLC. Overall, Rangers are very similar to Mountaineers, both in terms of initial stats and Doctrine buffs. But where Mountaineers specialize in hills and mountains, Rangers specialize in forests and jungles. Right now it's hard to tell whether Rangers will be able to challenge the Mountaineer supremacy in the Special Forces meta, but forests are very common terrain types, so having specialized units that can thrive in there could prove to be very valuable. At the beginning of the video I promised you a full overview of all doctrines, so let's also take a brief look at Naval Grand Doctrines. This section though will be covered by someone who enjoys the Navy a lot more than I do, so please, Hamo time, take it from here.
Fleet and Being is clearly orientated towards larger fleets. It's a great choice when you already have naval dominance over your opponents and aim to maintain it. Most of its buffs target capital ships and battleships, with added bonuses to naval anti-air and escort efficiency. It should come as no surprise that this is the starting doctrine for powerful naval powers, such as the United Kingdom and Italy. When you're challenging enemy dominance with a smaller fleet, however, Trade Interdiction might be the perfect choice. This is the starting doctrine for Germany, which already hints at its purpose. Trade Interdiction offers great bonuses to submarines, enhancing convoy rating by making them deadlier and harder to detect. This is a doctrine that you'll want to pick when you don't have overwhelming naval supremacy, and if you plan to take the sneaky approach to even the odds. It's even more relevant now that submarines on convoy rating directly help reduce enemy naval dominance. Finally, we have Base Strike, the starting doctrine for both great rivals in the Pacific, the United States and Japan. Base Strike excels in two very different situations, and the first one is obvious, and the second, not so much. First, you want to pick Base Strike if you have a good number of carriers in your navy, as most of its buffs focus on carriers and naval bombers. However, having a large navy alone isn't enough. Italy, for example, starts with a sizable navy, but it lacks carriers and carrier technologies. On the other hand, both Japan and the US have all the tools needed to make excellent use of the Base Strike doctrine. Surprisingly, the second situation in which Base Strike performs incredibly well is when you don't have a navy at all. Even just unlocking the Grand Doctrine without investing in sub-doctrines grants an impressive bonus to port strike effectiveness for all of your naval bombers. This bonus doesn't only apply to carrier-based bombers, it also benefits regular CAS or heavy bombers equipped with bomb locks, making them much more effective at harassing enemy fleets. These buffs can be expanded later on by further investing in sub-doctrines and unlocking milestones, making naval bombers deadlier than ever.
Thank you, Hamo. Awesome as always. So now, to conclude our guide, we only have air doctrines left, so let's get into it. Most nations start without one pre-selected, meaning you have a lot of freedom when choosing your preferred approach. Battlefield support offers several great buffs to your close air support or CAS planes. Most notably, you get some extra air support mission efficiency with the Grand Doctrine itself, and then extra ground support and agility for your CAS upon completing the Strike Aircraft milestone. You will also receive some fairly balanced buffs to air superiority, ace generation chance, and even some strategic bombing. The catch is that your CAS cannot operate effectively without air superiority, and Battlefield support does not offer any direct buffs to fighters. This makes it a great choice when you're confident that you will dominate the skies in any case. It's a strong pick in single player, especially for majors, as achieving air superiority versus the eye is usually fairly easy. In multiplayer, however, it becomes a lot more situational, and the lack of fighters buffs can be painful. So, operational integrity is designed to solve those issues. It grants a fantastic bonus to interception and air superiority right away, followed by even more air superiority and agility for your fighters and heavy fighters through milestones. And while it provides slightly weaker bonuses to strategic bombing compared to the competition, it compensates with reduced strategic bombing visibility and additional bomber defense, making your air wings safer and harder to detect. Overall, operational integrity is a great choice to gain and maintain air control, especially in multiplayer. Finally, we have strategic destruction, which, as the name suggests, focuses heavily on strategic bombing. Now, before diving deeper, it's worth asking whether strategic bombing is actually a valuable mission or not. The short answer is yes in multiplayer, not really in single player. The reason is simple. strategic bombing is great at dealing some serious damage to the enemy's industry and infrastructures. This can be a game changer in long wars of attrition, where resource and supply advantages matter. However, in single player, you'll often end up bombing land that you're about to conquer yourself, essentially bombing your own future land. For these reasons, strategic destruction tends to be a multiplayer-oriented doctrine. That said, there are a couple of strong bonuses worth mentioning. While it provides fewer direct air superiority bonuses than operational integrity, it still provides the same buffs to fighters and heavy fighters' agility. But more importantly, this is the only doctrine that directly buffs naval bombing, offering extra naval mission efficiency upon completing the strike aircraft sub-doctrine. And with this, we have officially covered every single grand doctrine in Hearts of Iron 4. The reworked doctrine system brought a lot of new mechanics and strategic options to consider. And in my opinion, this is something Hearts of Iron 4 really needed. We will probably still see additional tweaks and balance updates in the upcoming weeks and months, but I am convinced Paradox is moving in the right direction with this rework. Naturally, I will keep covering all aspects of the game on my channel, including a full analysis of all sub-doctrines in a dedicated video. Hopefully, Paradox will ask me to collaborate with them again, but in the meantime, they've kindly offered to include links to some of my dedicated guides in the description below, so make sure to check them out. If you enjoyed our work, please let us know in the comments, and feel free to ask questions or share suggestions about future guides. I will be reading and replying as much as possible. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye!